All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Kellison, the State Director for Florida MUFON, and I want to welcome you to this month's meeting. Before we get started, I'd like to thank all of our members who are joining us tonight, as well as those who will be watching the recorded version later. Your membership is a vital part of MUFON's success, and we are truly grateful for your continued support. If you're not currently a MUFON member and would like to join, please visit www.mufon.com and click on the Join tab. Let's see. Also want to announce that reservations for this year's MUFON Symposium are still available. The symposium will once again be held in Northern Kentucky at the Northern Kentucky Convention Center in Covington. This is just across the river from Cincinnati. This year's theme is UFO Revelations, Impact on Society and Science. For additional information or to register, please visit www.mufonsymposium.com. And I'd also like to let everybody know that Florida MUFON has an active Facebook group. If you're on Facebook and would like to join us, the group is called MUFON Florida. I've posted the link in the chat and will also include it in the email that accompanies the recording of tonight's meeting. For our presentation this evening, I'd like to mention that there will be an opportunity to ask questions during the presentation using the chat feature, and we'll address those during the Q&A session at the conclusion of the presentation. If you would prefer to ask your question directly, simply click the React button at the bottom of your screen and select Raise Hand. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Assistant State Director, Rusty Hester.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. We're real excited that Matt's going to do his presentation for us on a case he's been working on for a very long time, and I'm very proud of him and really excited about this. Matt's a retired U.S. Coast Guard Chief Warrant Officer with 30 years of distinguished service in aviation engineering as a helicopter search and rescue air crewman. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Technology from Purdue University and a Master of Science in Aviation and Aerospace Management from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Following his retirement, Matt joined MUFON in 2022 and currently serves as the State Director for Florida, as well as a member of MUFON's Experiencer Resource Team, ERT. He has investigated more than 170 UFO sighting cases and worked closely with over 40 experiencers reporting contact and abduction events. Give Matt a warm welcome. Thank you, Matt.
Do we hear him?
I don't know. He must be getting cold feet. I hope not. All right, let's see. Let's see. Where'd you go, Matt?
Maybe he was abducted.
Yeah, fine time to have that happen. He's not on the list right now of participants. He might have gotten off and he's restarting.
Yeah.
Technical difficulties.
He just wants to build dramatic suspense.
I just called him. He's not answering.
Uh-oh.
Oh, wait. His power just blinked at his house. He'll be back in 1 minute. He's logging on.
Sorry about that, everybody. My power blinked for just a second. So,
We thought maybe you got abducted.
it's interesting. So, my sister was telling me that Mercury is in retrograde until I think 6:57 tonight. She said that all electronics are, there might be electronic, problems with electronics up until that time. So, I'll have to attribute it to that, I guess.
Yep.
So. All right, so let's get going again. Rusty's already done the introduction, so
Yep.
we'll get going. I'll start share. We're still recording. Uh, yep. All right, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
You see that, Rusty?
Yes.
Okay, all right, we'll get started then. All right, so this is MUFON case number 142206. This is a case that I got last spring of 2025, and I spent about 10 months working on it. It's by far the most complicated case that I've investigated so far, and it is really phenomenal. I'm excited to share this with you tonight, so we'll get started. So this is just a confidentially warning about witness anonymity. So the witness in this case is a successful businessman who has everything to lose by coming out with this, but he was brave enough to do so, and he's here with us tonight. He's going by the pseudonym John. So if you see John speaking up, you'll know that this is really his story. So here's the event background. In December 2021, the witness, who is a lifelong experiencer, was sitting on the back porch of his golf course townhome in Key West, Florida, deleting old photos and videos from his cell phone's gallery when he noticed an unfamiliar video that was recorded on Saturday, June 12, 2021 at 1:15 a.m. The video appeared to have been taken aboard a craft of some type and showed the blinking lights of a nearby cell tower through some type of window. In the foreground, several entities can be seen, including at least two grays, two frog-like beings, and a tall reptilian being. The witness underwent several hypnotherapy sessions to help him recover his missing memories from this event with hypnotherapist and abduction researcher Yvonne Smith and Dr. Thomas Beck of Sacred Encounters in Seattle, Washington. He had previously undergone multiple hypnosis sessions in New York City with Bud Hopkins in the mid-90s. With their assistance, he was able to remember the events in greater detail, which are summarized in this presentation. And I'll show the actual video that the witness took multiple times, but I'll just start the presentation by showing it to you. But don't worry, it's shown multiple times through the presentation. And I don't think there's any sound to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share and share again. And this time I'm going to share with sound. Okay. All right. All right. So we'll start out with previous abductions and high strangeness events. So the first abduction occurred for the experiencer in 1972 in New Rochelle, New York, which is in the Hudson Valley. He was age 7 at the time. And during this encounter, it started out, he was at home in his bed just before sunrise when he saw the daylight behind his bedroom window shade. At that moment, a voice spoke to him and said, "It's all right, we're not going to hurt you." Scared but strangely reassured by the voice, he leaned toward the window and opened the shade only to find himself face to face with a gray wolf. The wolf, standing upright, reached out its hand and told him, "Take my hand, we're not going to hurt you." The experiencer reached out and took the wolf's hand and was immediately pulled through the closed window without any resistance. He and the wolf floated in standing position above the ground, gliding along the front path of the house. Waiting for them in the pathway about 15 feet away was a girl he recognized as his 10-year-old neighbor wearing her nightgown. The three of them floated silently together down the slanted driveway toward a large silver saucer craft that hovered just above the power lines. Years later, during hypnosis regression conducted by Bud Hopkins, he recalled this experience in greater detail and noted, that wasn't a wolf, it was a gray alien. He realized the wolf's paw that seemingly came through the window to take his hand was actually the hand of a gray. A few years later, in 1974, the witness experiencer was 9 years old at the time. He woke up on the floor beside his bed around 3 a.m. one early morning, screaming in pain. His parents and grandmother, who was visiting, rushed into his room. He had a broken clavicle, and his pajamas were streaked with grass stains and dirt, specifically around the knees and elbows. His parents took him to the emergency room, but no one could explain how he had sustained such injuries falling out of his bed, and they were unable to account for the stained clothing. Interestingly, there was no further discussion of the incident. Years later, the witness surmised that he may have been dropped from a blue beam of light that was used in later abductions to levitate him into the craft. He also recalled during his childhood at sleepaway camp being scolded at least twice for vanishing for hours at a time with no memory of where he had been. Fast forward to 1989, the witness experiencer was working in New York City. He was 24 years old, and he was walking along just over from Central Park on Columbus Avenue in Manhattan. As he reached an intersection, he waited to cross the opposite side of the street, intending to continue towards Central Park. The intersection was crowded, with pedestrians gathered on both sides, all waiting for the light to change. When the crosswalk opened, he stepped off the curb and immediately spotted an extremely tall man walking with the oncoming crowd. The experiencer said the man reminded him of the male model Fabio and was between 7'2" and 7'8" with blonde hair and blue eyes, wearing a brown leather bomber jacket. He said the man clearly stood out, but for some reason no one else in the crowd seemed to notice. As they walked closer, he thought to himself, "That's one of the Nordics." At this point in his life, he is 24 years old and had been reading about UFOs and aliens from a young age. He said that as soon as that thought popped into his head, the tall man turned his head toward him and they locked eyes from about 25 feet away until they passed. The experiencer, who is 5'7", would normally be lost in such a crowd, yet this being never took his eyes off of him. When he got to the other corner, the crowd dissipated, leaving only the Nordic being on the opposite corner, still intently staring at him as he stood there feeling very nervous. The experiencer quickly turned and walked away. This next event was Westchester County, New York. Again, this is Hudson Valley, March 1994. Experiencer's age was 28. So in March of 1994, at approximately 11:10 p.m., the experiencer was at his friend's home in a sparsely populated suburban area in New York's Hudson Valley. The area was extremely dark with no streetlights and only one neighboring home approximately 100 feet away. Standing outside on a raised deck 16 to 18 feet off the ground, he observed an extremely bright orange light through the leafless trees beyond the backyard. Shifting slightly for a clear view, he immediately recognized the object as a UFO and yelled to his friends, "Get out here quick, there's an effing UFO in the woods." He described the UFO as roughly 50 feet in diameter and 40 feet tall, sitting on the ground in a neighboring backyard. Both men observed the craft for approximately 45 seconds before his friend retrieved a pair of binoculars from inside the home, which revealed a clear view of the structured craft with an open hatch on the bottom touching the ground. About 20 feet to the left of the craft stood a small gray, approximately 4 feet tall, wearing a tight-fitting black jumpsuit with smooth, dolphin-like skin, thin torso, very long arms, long hands and fingers, and thin legs. They observed the profile of the being and noted a large black eye, tiny nostril and ear, and only a slit for a mouth. He suggested to his friend that they synchronize their watches. It was 11:17 p.m. The next thing that either of them remembered was regaining awareness inside of the home on the living room floor at 12:40 a.m. with no recollection of the intervening 1 hour and 23 minutes. He asked, "Weren't we just out back looking at a UFO?" And then they rushed out back outside, only to find the dark area where the UFO had been and no UFO. A few years later, he underwent regression therapy with Bud Hopkins, during which he recalled additional details of this encounter. He described the three gray entities floating through his friend's backyard toward the house. When they reached the deck, 18 feet below them, the beings floated in a line up the stairs of the deck. He said they all floated 4 or 5 inches off of the ground. When they reached him and his friend, they were both floated upright, like the beings, forming a line and began moving down the wooden stairs. They went single file through the wooden gate at the top of the stairs and floated through their backyard to the craft. They then found themselves sitting naked on a bench behind a half wall in a large, brightly illuminated room. He recognized the inside of the craft and the exam room from his previous abductions. There were no visible lights inside the craft, and the light seemed to emanate from the bases of the floor and the ceiling edges. The room contained 2 long metal tables like a vet's office. He then found himself on one of the tables. His friend was on the other table. Both were naked with some type of suction device covering their privates. His next memory was waking up in his friend's living room on the floor. The next encounter was in Denver, Colorado, 1997. The experiencer was aged 32 at the time. He and his fiancée were in Denver for a friend's wedding, and they were staying at the Embassy Suites Hotel near the Rockies baseball stadium or Coors Field. On the first night of the visit, he woke up between 2 and 5 a.m. and felt the top of his head was wet. Turning on the lamp, he saw his hand was covered in blood, and there was a 6-inch spot on his pillow that was completely saturated. His fiancée awakened, and upon seeing the blood everywhere, exclaimed, "My God, what happened?" He replied, "I don't know, but I may have been abducted." She told him, "I think you should go to the bathroom and wash it off." Oddly, he simply stated, "No, I think we should just go back to sleep." He then turned the pillow over, turned the light off, and they went back to sleep. In the morning, he noted 3 purple bruises on his right hip. The bruises consisted of 3 triangles that formed a larger triangle measuring 2/3 of an inch by 2/3 of an inch by 2/3 of an inch. He recognized these as he had experienced the same bruising twice as an adult in his 20s on the inside of his left forearm. During one of the regressions with Bud, he clearly remembered a gray floating to the left of his bed in his hotel room. The being was chalky white with a skin-tight black jumpsuit. 2 other grays were at the foot of the bed. He was then manipulated out of the bed and found himself floating upright, standing in single file with the entities, then floating in line through the air conditioning unit, the wall, and the window. He found himself floating in the air outside of the hotel and observed a silver disc 30 feet above him with a blue beam coming out of the bottom. He followed the first 2 grays as they entered the blue beam and were pulled upward into the bottom of the craft. His next memory was standing naked inside the craft in a bright room with 2 exam tables that were on the opposite side of him, and noted a half-tube blue beam elevator to his left. In front of him were a group of grays examining 2 other naked people on the tables. One was a Caucasian man, the other was a Caucasian woman with red hair. His fiancée had reddish hair, however, he wasn't sure if it was her. He then remembered being on the dark side of the craft, sitting in a chair that he described as brushed aluminum with all right angles that resembled a large dentist chair. The chair was very cold and swiveled around as if on ball bearings. The chair tilted back slightly, and he could see what looked to be like a metal skull cap descending from the ceiling and covering the top of his head. A long metal rod resembling a dentist's drill then extended down and began drilling into his head. The experiencer, who is balding, still has a visible scar on the crown of his head. Next event occurred in 1999. This was Pond Eddy, New York, along the Delaware River. The experiencer at the time was age 33. So at the time, he and 40 of his friends were on an annual camping canoe trip on the Delaware River. One evening during the trip, he and his friends had set up camp along the shoreline. He was about 40 feet away from the campfire with 4 of his friends when he observed a craft coming over the tree line on the New York side of the river about 280 yards away. The craft went over the river, turned right toward them, heading north up the river. The craft moved about 5 to 6 miles per hour, about 60 feet over the river, and the experiencer said to his friends, "Hey dudes, there's a UFO." They all observed the craft. He described the craft as looking similar to the bell-shaped Kecksburg UFO from December 9th, 1965 in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. The gold brass colored craft was approximately 18 feet tall and had blue, green, and red lights around its base that were about 3 feet in diameter. There was one small single porthole or round window on the side, and the craft had an antenna on the top. It was completely silent and only about 100 feet away at its closest approach. The river at this point was approximately 300 feet wide where they were located. After traveling another 80 feet past the witnesses, the craft made a right-hand turn and disappeared over the tree line in the direction of Kittatinny Canoe Rental Campground. After the craft disappeared, he went back to the campfire and his friends, and no one said another word about it. 8 months later, he called Jerry's Three River Canoe Basin Campground to plan the next year's trip. The owner's wife, who was his friend, mentioned, "If this trip is as good as last year's, you boys will have another great time." He asked what she meant by this, and she recalled the UFO sighting, explaining, "We have a newspaper article from the local paper where over 20 people along the river reported seeing it. The newspaper article from Pond Eddy was hanging on the wall in the campground office. The following year, he and his friends made T-shirts for the group with the UFO printed on it to commemorate the past year's sighting." While reviewing the specific details of his sessions with Bud Hopkins in the mid-1990s, the experiencer mentioned that he recalled being aboard a smaller craft resembling the sport model described by Bob Lazar. He stated that the interior of the craft was extremely confined, requiring him to lie uncomfortably on his side on the floor. Two short grays were piloting the craft, seated in small chairs arranged around a central cylindrical structure. While lying on the floor, he reported looking out through a circular window and observed a cityscape below that he was confident was not on Earth. He described the exterior environment as appearing within a single color spectrum, with hills, trees, and buildings rendered in a white-washed lavender hue. In contrast, when he looked back inside the craft, the interior colors appeared normal to him and within the typical visible spectrum. He said that he could not recall which specific abduction event this experience was associated with, and asked Bud Hopkins to help him explore the memory further. According to him, Bud declined to pursue that line of inquiry, choosing instead to focus on more localized aspects of the abduction process and interactions with the entities. The witness indicated that he would like to revisit this episode in a future hypnosis session. In 2007, the witness experiencer was living in Parkland, Florida. He was 35 years old at this point, and sometime around this period, he had another strange encounter. This time, he, his friend, and his friend's stepfather were in his friend's backyard barbecuing while their families were inside. Outside, the experiencer observed a flash of light in the sky. After a short time, the flash repeated. After the second strobe-like flash, he began counting to himself, 1,000, 2, 1,000, until it flashed again at 13. He pointed the craft out to the two other men, and they watched the spot in the sky while he counted out loud. They watched the light for at least another 7 or 8 times, all while discussing what it couldn't be. By their estimates, it was approximately a quarter mile away and about 1,000 feet in altitude. It never moved nor made any sound. The next thing he remembered was standing near the grill, looking at each other and discussing how all the food was burned to a crisp and far beyond being edible. Approximately 1 hour had passed that no one could account for. The adult women in the house also seemed to experience a time lapse with no memory. The event was only discussed once thereafter. Additionally, the experiencer recalled that his friend had showed him 3 deep scoop marks on his body that he couldn't explain. So in the year 2000, the experiencer was 35 years old, and he was suffering from ongoing headaches for about 2 weeks and sought the help of Dr. Albert Szabo, a neurologist and chair of the Department of Neurology at Northern Westchester Hospital in Mount Kisco, New York. The experiencer met with Dr. Szabo after having an MRI, who told him, "We found something benign." It was a Rathke's cleft cyst, a small benign tumor found on the pituitary gland of 2% of the world's population and are typically the size of a pea just above the nasal cavity. He asked the doctor an unusual question. "If I took your pen and balanced a BB the same size as the cyst and jammed it up my nose and hit it really hard at the bottom," Dr. Szabo unexpectedly interrupted, responding, "Do you think you've been abducted by aliens? I asked because I have two Rathke's cleft cyst patients about the same age as me, Dr. Szabo, he was 45, in the past 4 years that also have Rathke's cleft cysts and believe that it's an alien implant. One was a female attorney who told him, I think it's an alien implant. I'm an abductee. The other was a male CPA who explained that he was a lifelong abductee as well. The experiencer was the third patient in 4 years with this claim. He told Dr. Szabo of the unexplained nosebleeds as a child, and they discussed a theoretical study with 100 abductees undergoing MRI screenings and filling out an abduction survey to see the prevalence of Rathke's cleft cysts. He noted that David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins together once stated that they believed 2 to 3% of the world's population was being abducted, so it wouldn't surprise them if the two were related. Sadly, Dr. Szabo passed away from an apparent suicide on April 2nd, 2024, only a few months after the experiencer unsuccessfully tried to reach him. And this is an image that was analyzed by quantum imaging analyst Stephen Leah, who I will get into great depth with his work near the end of the presentation. But Stephen owns a company called Hidden Worlds. He does, like I said, quantum imaging analyses. And he conducted a study using a headshot that the witness provided. The result, after his quantum survey, which is a proprietary process. There's a couple of different processes that they use, but this one process that they used appeared to show a third eye and a magnetic field lines that surround the area where the pituitary gland and Rathke's cleft cyst are located. And that's the area right here. And you can see the bright red spot. And then you can see these what appear to be magnetic lines of flux that are emanating out from it. So now we'll get to the Key West event. So this occurred June 12, 2021, 1:15 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And at the time, the experiencer was 55 years old. And I'll play the video for you one more time.
Holy crap. Holy crap. This is crazy. Fuck.
All right. And you'll see that video multiple times before the presentation is over. So early in the morning on Saturday, June 12, 2021, just after 1 a.m., the witness arrived at his home in Key West, Florida. After parking his car, he walked down a pathway between an adjacent townhome toward his door located to his left. Straight ahead of him, the pathway continued on toward the golf course on the other side of a gated fence. As he walked down the sidewalk pathway, he observed a gray entity with white head and a black jumpsuit just standing there at the end of the walkway. He remembered being paralyzed and floated several inches off the ground before being led in line with the gray through the gated fence and out onto the golf course. On the golf course, he observed a large orange glowing sphere positioned near the fairway. He was guided directly toward the object and realized he was being floated into the craft via a ramp connected to a hatch underneath. He did not recall seeing any landing gear and therefore could not determine whether the craft was resting on the ground or hovering. Once inside the craft, he entered a curved hallway that extended in both directions and was led approximately 8 to 9 feet to the left toward a brightly illuminated white lab or exam room. The hallway contained a bench he recalled from the previous abduction event in Hudson Valley, Westchester County in 1994 that we just spoke about. During that earlier incident, he and his friend had been seated on the same or a very similar bench. Now, this graphic, I just wanted to point out, is I created this graphic and I used all of the frames from the video to kind of construct it. So it's proportionally accurate. It's a panorama of the recorded scene that So as the camera pans around, this is the setting, minus the the entities and a lot of other weird stuff. So after passing through the exam room, the experiencer was led into the dark control room that appears in the video. This room was extremely dark and had a large wraparound window that showed a cell phone tower with 2 red obstruction lights flashing every 2 seconds. On the overhead ceiling bulkhead, there was a large ringed light with a spinning disc-shaped object on the bottom. Above the light ring, an organic-looking appendage was moving at high speed around the ceiling. To his right was the doorway to the brightly illuminated exam room where he had just been, and that's the white strip on the right side of the screen is the delineated portion that separates the white exam room with the dark control room. And next time you watch the video, it'll stand out. So once in the dark control room, he observed 2 frog-like entities to his left, dressed in black uniforms, along with several grays. 2 of the grays were approximately 5 feet tall. One stood behind the frog-like beings, wearing a dark V-neck shirt, while the other to the right wore a dark gray uniform without a V-neck, bearing a subdued emblem on the right chest. Several additional shorter grays, approximately 3 feet tall, were also present in the room. To the far right stood a 5-foot-tall reptilian humanoid with a head resembling that of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, dressed in a light beige monk-like tunic. During the encounter, he received telepathic communications from the beings and perceived that some of these beings held specific duties. He sensed that the tall gray to his right as having a more militaristic or security-oriented role. The 2 frog beings appeared to be serving as doctors or healers. He perceived the taller frog as being male with a business-like demeanor, while the shorter frog appeared to be more feminine and projected a strong sense of empathy and care towards him, which he found reassuring. He believed that the reptilian entity with the dinosaur-like head functioned as a scientist or in scientific capacity. The witness further sensed that the tall gray who appeared to be in charge was becoming impatient with the delay he was causing, possibly related to his recording. At this point, he reported receiving telepathic messages from the being stating, "You have a job to do, you have a mission," though he remains unclear about the nature of that assignment. He perceived no communication or emotional presence from the smaller grays in the background and described them as being indifferent. Although the female frog doctor did not communicate telepathically, she projected a strong impression that he would be okay. The witness recalled that after recording with his phone, the female frog assisted him in sitting down in a central chair made of brushed metal, positioned on a slightly elevated platform. And this is a drawing of the interior of the craft. So you can see the doorway here at the bottom. And then here's the half wall that leads into the brightly lit exam room with these 2 like brushed metal tables. Over here was the entry point for a couple of his other abduction experiences where he was kind of pulled up into the craft by a blue beam, and he feels like this is the entry point for that. And then here is the doorway that leads from the light area of the craft into the dark area. And it's as you saw in the video and then in the illustration, that there's a delineation here where the white light from the exam room does not bleed over into the dark control room. Here in the control room, there was a console that ran most of the along the side bulkhead. And that's in the video, you're looking through that window out to the cell phone tower, which is outside the craft. And then in the center of this room, there was a table or console, and then there was a metal chair that was, back toward the back. So we'll get to the video analysis. So the 43-second video was recorded with a Samsung Galaxy S21 on June 12th, 2021 at 1:15 a.m. It consisted of 1,270 discrete frames that were recorded in a 1:1 format at 30 frames per second.
Holy crap. Holy crap. This is crazy. Fuck.
we're coming up on that brightly lit delineation between the light exam room and the dark control room right here at the end, right there. So the video, I need to explain a little bit about my process for analyzing this video. So the video frames were isolated using Adobe Premiere Pro version 25.6.4 and analyzed in Adobe Photoshop version 7.0. The original frames were preserved unaltered with all enhancements performed on duplicate copies to maintain data integrity. Adjustments were limited to global changes, which are contrast, color balance, brightness, and desaturation, with occasional overall darkening to improve the visibility of the areas of interest. No localized editing, compositing, cloning, content-aware processing, or pixel generation techniques were used. Up to 5 derivative versions per frame were retained. I selected Photoshop 7 specifically because it predates Adobe's AI and machine learning integration, which was introduced in 2016 and expanded. That was with Cincy, and it was later expanded for the Creative Cloud release for Photoshop in 2018. I did this to ensure that the analysis was restricted to direct pixel-level global adjustments only. This approach prevented any AI-driven modification or reinterpretation of the pixel data, preserving evidentiary integrity and analytical transparency. It starts out, frame 1, the video opens and shows what appears to be a dimly lit room with a bay window and a bright ceiling light fixture at the top of the frame. The structure of the light appears to be a large, bright circular band with another dark circular disc underneath it. There's also a vertical structure underneath the ceiling light structure that was identified as a cell phone tower located 1,163 feet or approximately a quarter mile to the southeast of the witness's townhome. Frames 3 through 5, so this is not even a second in, it's 2 frames and 4 frames in. A black shadow appears in the top right corner and shrinks into an inverted triangle shape object as it moves into the top center frame, passing in line above the circular light ring from right to left. This transient ceiling object makes 17 visible passes during the duration of the video. It's frame 36. This is just a little over 1 second into the video. There's a slight movement at the bottom left of the frame that appears to be a small gray entity in the background. And in this zoomed in version, you can kind of see, obviously, the 2 black eyes. What I think is interesting is, it has these squared off shoulders and obviously, large head. So I thought that was a pretty interesting frame. Frame number 49, this is about a second and a half into the video. This frame is the first in the sequence that shows the 2 aviation obstruction lights on the cell phone tower as they begin to flash. The frame shows the 2 lights flashing together with a deep red hue surrounding the area. The fog-like atmosphere within the room seems to be diffusing the red light throughout the room. It's frame number 83. There's a movement is observed on the left side of the frame that appears to show the large head of a second entity. The figure's head at the bottom left corner becomes clear on this frame as well as the next. The large head and large eye structure are reminiscent of an archetypal image of an alien gray. And this one's not that clear. There's much clearer ones later, but that was, I think, the first clear version going through the video. And like I said, we're about just under 3 seconds into a 43-second video. Frame 109, this is 3 seconds in. The 2 obstruction lights flash for a second time, exactly 2 seconds after the first flash, which shows the lights on the tower structure are flashing at a rate of 30 cycles per second, or per minute. This pattern conforms to the federal standards described in FAA Advisory Circular AC 70-7460, which requires aviation obstruction lights on cell towers to flash simultaneously at a rate of 30 flashes per minute, which is what we see here. Frame number 304, this is about 10 seconds into the video. This frame shows the transient ceiling object with slightly better clarity and highlights the apparent shape. It also shows a more defined view of the lighter area on the underside of the rotating disc that suggests that this is some type of physical protrusion or instrument rather than reflected light. Also of note is the disc edge that has a recessed rectangular geometry moving right to left or counterclockwise. So this is that white-shaped instrument that doesn't move. And then the edge of the disc here, when it's in motion, these rectangular shapes along the disc edge are moving. So it appears that this disc is spinning itself. And then this is the transient object on the ceiling, and it has variable shapes. It morphs into, kind of this, triangular pattern as it moves across. And I'll show you a lot more frames with it, with a lot of other variable geometry. So this single frame this is frame 313, just over 10 seconds into the video. This single frame initially appears to be the beginning of the transient object's next pass. However, the dark mass in the top corner does not follow through in subsequent frames. The dark mass is nebulous and undefined, but similar to the transient object's start point in the previous sequences. Another interesting item to note is the presence of at least 3 well-defined eye or lens-like circular structures on the underside of the mass. These features are reminiscent of the prehensile suckers found on octopus tentacles, which could indicate that it may be a biological component. And that's these circular areas right here. So this is it's a frame sequence. This is the one in the middle, somewhere in the middle there. But so roughly 10 and a half seconds into the video, the transient object is visible again as it makes pass number 5. The beginning of this sequence shows the dark mass in the upper right corner. That's frame 318 that we're looking at, with the similar objects underneath like the last one that we looked at. However, they are much less prominent. The sequence also shows the object in 4 adjacent frames, unlike 3 frames in previous passes, which could indicate that the object is moving slightly slower than before. Frame number 319 also gives the impression that it's pushing through like a pliable membrane in the ceiling overhead. And the way I kind of envision this is if you had a big piece of like visqueen plastic, plastic sheeting, and stretched it out, and then you put your finger through the top of it. That's kind of what it looks like. It looks like almost like the ceiling is malleable, and this is pushing through the ceiling. Frame number 349, this is 11 seconds into the video. As the intensity of the 6 tower flash increases, several of the floating objects in the room become much more defined. One in particular is a spherical object that seems to be momentarily attached to the white instrument underneath the disc. So this is the full frame, and you can see that object right there that I'm talking about. With it almost looks like a filament that's attached to this white portion of the disc. And then this is just the blown up version of it. It shows it in a little bit better detail. Frames 358 through 403, during this sequence, a substantial number of that debris that we showed you in the last slide is observed in the air, moving right to left just below the rotating disc in the overhead. Some of these particles appear to be fairly large and can be tracked from one frame to the next. These appear to be solid objects as they are large enough to reflect light on one side and are shadowed on the opposite side. Frame 487, this is 16 seconds into the video. The tall gray's head is shown with a little better clarity. The eyes are much more defined and appear to be large, black, and almond-shaped with a slight reflection of light shown in both. To the right side of the frame, the smaller gray's head can be seen slightly turned toward the right of the frame. To the tall gray's left of frame, there appears to be another being that is closer, possibly within a few feet of the camera, that is much shorter. The head is larger and looks like an amphibious frog with a very defined prefrontal and post-orbital ridge above the left and right eyes. So what we're looking at here is this is the tall gray. Off to the side, here's the short gray, and these zoomed and desaturated shots that I have here are pulled right from this frame. And you can see right here where my cursor is, that is this being right here. And then the frog-like being is right here, and he'll become much clearer in subsequent frames. Frame number 638, this is 21 seconds in. The frame shows the tall gray's face with slightly more detail. And again, this is the original frame. And then what I did is I converted it to black and white, and then I darkened the background just slightly to make it a little bit more defined. But we can see here that his head. So we've got the brow ridge here with the dark eyes. Here's the neck right here. So not really clear until you start getting in and playing with some of the the contrast and the brightness. Here's another one, similar view. Right, frame 707, this is an important one. So just 23 seconds in, the obstruction lights flash. This is the 12th flash. During this sequence, the frog-like being's left eye seems to be reflecting the flash of light. So this is the being's left eye. This is the top of its head. And then like the mouth would be right here. And then this is the tall gray. And then this little spot over here is the short gray in the background. And one thing to note, the tall gray just to the right of the frog being, in this single frame, the gray appears to also have a frog-like head structure. And this is what I'm talking about here. So you've seen the other slides with the gray, so you kind of know what he looks like. But for this one frame, it appears that this frog-like structure, like frog head structure appears. And it's got the same symmetry, the same eye location. Really strange, and I'll get to this later on in the presentation with some even weirder stuff. But this is a very important frame, so I want you to remember this. Frame number 911. This is 30 seconds in. In this frame, the frog being is shown left of the frame with the tall gray standing just to the right. This frame also shows the frog being's head. Along with a clearly defined left shoulder. The tall gray is standing slightly behind the frog being with a clear view of its forehead, upper eye structure, and a defined nasal bridge. And that's this guy right here. And then you can see I darkened the background a little bit so you could see the frog being a little bit better. So you got his head. This is a large eye. His other eye is off the frame here. And then this appears to be his shoulder. And this is like almost like an epaulette or some kind of a shoulder pad here. Frame number 948. During this frame, the reflected light at the lower center frame is present again. That's this one right here. During the third interview, the experiencer stated that there was a smaller frog-like being standing to the right of the tall gray and the male frog being. This would put the smaller female frog closer to the center of the frame. This reflection below the cell tower may be a reflection of the shorter female frog's right eye. In the high contrast version of this frame, the same frog-like head shape is seen more clearly, and the eye shape matches that of the male frog to the left of frame as observed in previous sequences. And I kind of highlighted or darkened the background so you could kind of get a little bit clearer, view of the shape of the head. Not very clear at all, but it's definitely, you can see the eye reflecting, and it's got the same like halfway closed eye shape that the other being had. In this frame, this is frame 950, 31 seconds into the video. The short frog's right eye is reflecting the obstruction light again, and the tall gray is shown slightly clearer when highlighted. The short gray in the background is visible just above the short frog's reflective eye. So the short gray is back here. This is the short frog being, and then this is a highlighted version that shows the gray being a little bit better. And this frame 986. This is probably of all the entity frames. This is probably my favorite. This is what the frame looks like, unedited. And then once I adjusted the contrast and desaturated it, turned it into black and white, and then I just traced out. I darkened the background by slightly. I did this all by hand, but it shows the shape of the tall gray's head. You can definitely see the eye structure, the chin structure, the neck, and then the shoulders here. But just looking at the frame, the unedited version from the video, I mean, it's hard to pick that out. But this is what was one of the best views of the gray. Frame number 1068, this is 35 seconds in. The obstruction lights flash for the 18th time. During this sequence, a rectangular object can be observed in the lower portion of the frames and shows distinctive right angles. Based on the witness's drawing of the interior layout of the craft, this may be some type of control console or the back of the metallic chair as he described. And then this is that rectangular section I'm talking about right there. Frame number 1132, this is 37 seconds into the video. Flash number 19 just extinguished. No reflection was present during this flash sequence. While it's difficult to differentiate the tower from the figures in the background, this single frame appears to show the head of a third gray just to the right of the tower and may explain the reflection present in the same area on frame 443. So this is that area right there, and I didn't have to do much to this one, but I zoomed in on it so you could get a little bit better view of it. So definitely see the head. You can see, the eyes right here with a slight reflection in the left eye. Frame 1258. This is 41 seconds into the video, just about the end of the video. In this portion, a solid white colored area begins to appear along the entire right side of the frame. This area is a straight line edge, and the edge appears to contain multicolored bubbles that move upward. That's what I'm talking about right here. So as you scroll frame by frame, these rainbow or multicolored bubbles are streaming up like that. So this sequence is reminiscent of an old film reel that is not feeding correctly over the projection lamp. Since this is a digital video versus an analog motion picture, this can be ruled out. However, it's interesting because the witness described another encounter on a craft similar to this, possibly the same, that had a sharply delineated area where one half of the ship was brightly illuminated and the other remained dark with no bleed over. Frame number 1258, 41 seconds in. In this single frame, there appears to be a solid structure just to the left of the bright vertical strip that could be biological when the frame is viewed with a higher contrast setting. This looks similar to the shape of the frog being's flattened head with the eyes on each side. However, the shape may be more reminiscent of the T-Rex dinosaur head that the witness remembered. The highlighted figure is an approximation and does not necessarily show the actual outline of the being. However, there are hints of scales on the top of the head, and the left eye looks like it may have a vertical pupil, and that's what I'm talking about right there, the left eye. But the head definitely has symmetry. It has the eyebrows, the brow structure, bone structure, and then in this area right up here, you can actually see what appears to be scales on both sides. So we'll talk about the location of the event. One of the primary criticisms of this video is the claim that it was recorded inside the witness's residence based on the apparent presence of a ceiling-mounted fixture and a nearby cellular tower visible through what appears to be a window. However, analysis of the tower's configuration and lighting characteristics strongly suggests otherwise. The structure visible in the recording is consistent with a specific FAA-registered cell tower located in Key West, Florida. Notably, this is the only tower in the Florida Keys equipped with a dual obstruction light configuration required due to its position between Key West International Airport and Naval Air Station Key West. The tower is 183 feet tall, three-legged, self-supporting lattice structure. It's got an FCC registration number and has two synchronized red obstruction beacons mounted near its apex on the north-facing side, spaced approximately 10 feet apart. And that'll be important here in just a second. But these are the lights that you see in the video, and then these elongated white items here are the actual cell phone antennas. So using the known separation distance between the obstruction lights that I just showed you, they're 10 feet apart, and you also using their measured span within the video that they take up approximately 10.5% of the image width. The camera to tower distance was calculated using a standard angular size pinhole camera model. Based on the Samsung Galaxy's S21 camera characteristics and a horizontal field of view of approximately 39 degrees in 1:1 recording mode, the estimated distance from the camera lens to the tower is approximately 130 feet. This finding effectively rules out the witness's residence located 1,163 feet away, or approximately a quarter of a mile to the southeast, as the recording location. Instead, the geometry of the tower and orientation of its north-facing light array indicate that the recording position was elevated and situated north of the structure approximately 180 feet off the ground, which is consistent with the position over top of a nearby beverage warehouse in a local industrial park. So if you look here, the golf course, you see this was the witness's residence. This was the pathway in between the two townhomes where he first saw the small gray at the gate. They walked out onto the fairway, and this is where the orange ball of light or craft was. And then during the video, this portion right here is where the cell phone tower is located. So that's approximately a quarter of a mile to the southeast. And then the approximate position of the craft was this area right here. This building is a soft drink beverage distributing company, and I believe that the craft was right over top of this building. So the townhome where the witness lived during the event is located in a golf club community on Stock Island, which is still in Key West, Florida. While the experiencer no longer lives at the location, photos of the empty unit are available on several realtor websites like Zillow or Realtor.com. For reference, the two photos shown below are the interior living room and the outer covered screen deck. Both photos are oriented toward the southeast, which is in the direction of the cell tower. The third photo is a zoomed and cropped image that was provided by the witness and shows the cell tower in the distance through the deck screen. Based on this evidence, it would be very improbable that the witness could have staged the scene shown in the video in his living room, especially considering the proximity of the entities, at least two of which were located at arm's length from the witness, and the proximity of the cell phone tower, which was calculated to be only 130 feet away from the camera lens. Additionally, the ceiling fixture anomaly in no way matches the ceiling fans that are installed in the residence. So this portion is about the transient ceiling object, which some skeptics have said that that's a ceiling fan or a fan blade. But the analysis of the transient ceiling object focused on determining whether its motion was consistent with a conventional rotating fixture such as a household ceiling fan. Frame-by-frame review of the 43-second recording identified 3 distinct visible sequences comprising of a total of 17 passes during which the object appears in 49 individual frames. The time spacing between the successive appearances follows a consistent alternating pattern of approximately 16 and 11 frames. If interpreted as a rotating system, this irregular cadence would require an asymmetrical or scissor-like configuration with angular separations that are approximately 73 degrees and 106 degrees rather than 90 degrees. While asymmetric rotor designs do exist in aerospace applications, because they serve specific aerodynamic and acoustic purposes, they are not representative of household fixtures, and no documented examples of asymmetrical ceiling fans were identified. In addition to its non-uniform frequency, the object's motion does not exhibit a circular or rotational path. Instead, it traverses a linear trajectory that briefly intersects the illuminated ring structure, further contradicting the ceiling fan hypothesis. Structurally, the object displays significant variability across frames, appearing to be triangular or pyramid-like shape in some instances, while exhibiting more amorphous organic characteristics in others. In several frames, it gives the visual impression of deforming or pressing against a pliable surface above the ceiling plane. Collectively, these timing, motion, and shape characteristics are inconsistent with any known lighted ceiling fans and do not support a conventional explanation. The second thing that I wanted to look at with the light element was the ringed light structure. So the second ceiling structure is the ring light that sits above the rotating disc. The light itself appears to be bright yellow and exhibits a steady level of brightness throughout the frames where it's visible. The light ring itself does not appear to be rotating. However, the transient ceiling object intersects the ring during several visible passes. The transient object does not appear to attach to the light. However, there are numerous frames where the object looks as if it is bending or squeezing the light ring's output from the top and bottom rather than simply blocking it. An example of this effect is shown in frame 20 or 320, which I've placed at the bottom. And this is important too because in another analysis that was done by quantum imaging expert Stephen Leah, he identified several areas where there was gravitational lensing taking place, and we'll get to that in just a second. The rotating disk was the final element of the ceiling overhand analysis, and it's a very prominent disk structure underneath the light ring that appears to be either rotating or have a rotating edge. Since there is a large number of flying debris passing in front of the camera, there was a consideration that the smaller dark objects along the disk edge may have been pieces of flying debris. However, after careful analysis, it was determined that the dark spots along the edge actually conform to the structure of the disk itself. These spots move from right to left, which would indicate that the disk or the edge has a rotating component that is moving counterclockwise. These dark edge spots seem to change in form during different sequences in the video and look round in some, nebulous in some, and then obviously rectangular in others. So in that, you can see here the variability in this upper image. You can see that they're mostly circular, and then the lower one, they have like this defined kind of rectangular shape to them. Another unusual element of the rotating disc is the white colored strip underneath the structure on the right side. It's unclear whether this is a feature, whether this feature is an instrument of some kind that's attached to the disc or if it's part of the disc structure itself. It's present in every single frame that the disc is visible and does not move. However, while the overall shape generally does not change, there is a great degree of variability with the small dark shapes that appear to be in close proximity or attached to it. One of the clearest views of the object as it appears more rod-like is in frame 298. That's the one, actually the one on top was mislabeled. During the frames in which it is visible, it is often highly distorted, and a few frames show that it changes shape slightly with elongation and retraction and may possibly be interacting with the flying debris as shown in frame 347 at the bottom. The box structure on the deck. A very curious rectangular box structure is visible in the lower portion of the video between frames 1058 and 1081. No other frames show this structure. However, it is very prominent during the obstruction lights flash number 18. It is unclear whether this structure is some type of table or console assembly or if it is an element of the deck structure of the craft. Several frames show what look to be an interior section consisting of smaller rectangular shapes, which seem to shift slightly from frame to frame. The clearest view of the structure can be observed in 6 frames shown below, 1066 and 1071. Note, this structure can only be observed when the still frames have been color and contrast adjusted. In the original form, the structure is not clearly visible. And then this is the vertical strip on the last frame set, another unusual feature. At first glance, the strip is reminiscent of the, like I said, the digital celluloid film reel projection. The metadata does not show any type of manipulation, and we know that this is a digital video, so that can be ruled out. One anomaly that stands out is the edge of the white strip that contains a series of multicolored bubbles that are moving upward. This effect is very similar to the rotating disc edge described above. When the screen images are contrast adjusted, the color of the bubble seems to be random between each frame as they move upward. And then this just gives, I took multiple frames, and you can just see the variability between that, the rainbow bubble-like structure. As addressed above, the witness described another encounter on a craft similar to this, possibly the same, that had a sharply delineated area where one half of the compartment or room was brightly illuminated while the other remained dark with no bleed over. He also stated that during his abduction event, he remembered being led through a lab exam room that was adjacent to the control room where the video was recorded. With this in mind, this frame sequence should not be dismissed, as it may show evidence of this and could be related to another unexplained light dispersion effect often described by other experiencers who have stated that the areas inside the craft they were aboard were brightly illuminated without a visible light source. So during this investigation, I had the pleasure of working with quantum imaging expert and owner, president of Hidden World Quantum Imaging, Stephen Leah. He's the one that did the third eye view of the experiencer's head. So Stephen Leah, who he specializes in quantum imaging analysis, electromagnetic field, environmental mapping, and detection of energetic phenomena. He is also the inventor of the company's proprietary photometric processing analysis software that offers the ability to extract useful hidden information within both visible and non-visible spectrums of any photograph or video. Mr. Leah uses classical and quantum-derived physics to achieve the unprecedented unlocking of hard-coded data sets within the imagery itself, and has previously worked with the U.S. Department of Defense, the U.S. Department of Energy, Lawrence Livermore National Lab, as well as the television show Mystery of Blind Frog Ranch on the Discovery Channel. So months before my investigation, Mr. Leah conducted his own detailed forensic analysis of the 1,270 extracted frames and found no evidence of manipulation, concluding that the video contains authentic anomalous data consistent with patterns observed in advanced scientific and defense-related research. His examination identified multiple non-random features, including morphing entity-like forms, layered superposition effects, toroidal spin structures with apparent axial organization, and localized gravitational lensing signatures near the camera, along with recurring craniomaxillofacial constructs, which you'll see a lot of that here in just a second, and that resemble distinct beings. These structured dynamic phenomena appear to emerge, transform, and interact within the frame and were found to be inconsistent with noise, pareidoia, or conventional imaging artifacts. His assessment is that the footage represents a complex and unexplained data set that could not have been fabricated. And so, if you'll recall, I showed you that the frame earlier that showed the tall gray's head, and that one frame kind of had a frog head. Well, this is that frame. And so what Stephen did was he took about 100 frames that surround that one frame. It's frame 700 through 800, I believe. And he ran it through his one of his proprietary processes that extracts this information. In one of those processes, he found that there was this toroidal structure, which is more colloquially known as a wormhole, that opened up right above the tall gray's head. And this is the actual frame that you're seeing right here. But with the process that he's using, it shows that this toroidal structure, and it's got and then he also did a version where this is a computer overlay, so you can see the toroidal structure. So it's got the tokamak through the center, and then the spheromak on the outside, and it appears that with this other process that he used, that he shows these craniomaxillofacial constructs essentially streaming out of the wormhole. And I'm going to play this for you. It's a few minutes long, but it's very interesting. Now, it plays through at a couple of different speeds. So it plays through at normal speed to begin with, and then on subsequent runs through, it slows down, and so that you can see it much better. And this is completely unexplained. It appears that these are coming out of the wormhole. I'm not sure. I don't think anybody knows what their purpose is. But obviously, that one frame that showed the frog head on the tall gray, I think that has something to do with that. Maybe this is their way of transmitting, you know, maybe like a transporter on Star Trek, something like that, that this is their way of moving through space-time and therefore violating, Einstein's theory of relativity. But some of these heads are really creepy. It's very bizarre. So hopefully Peter's still here. So Peter Osborne over in the UK runs the YouTube channel Truth in Focus. And like I said, I highly recommend that you check out his YouTube channel. He has several processes that I know they're very, very time consuming where he smooths out the like the edging. I'm not quite sure of the process itself, but what he came up with was pretty remarkable. It really kind of cleaned out a lot of that interference that you see in the regular video. So,
Holy crap. Holy crap. It's crazy. Fuck.
and then I believe, yeah. So this was the one that the entities were highlighted, and it's interesting. There's another one in the lower right-hand corner that very obscure, but I think it's in this one. Yeah. Now let's see. All right. So this is another version that Peter did. This one's purple, which I love. It's really, really cool. Same kind of thing, but just a little bit different. And if he's still on here, maybe he can explain, his
Holy
process.
crap. Holy crap. Crazy.
And the frog being there is very several frames that are really, really sharp. And I think that the cell phone tower is really interesting as well. It almost looks like these people are like dancing up there on it, very reminiscent of like figures, like humanoid figures.
Did you want me to say anything on it?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Oh, right. Sorry. I didn't know if I was switched on or not. Yeah, the purple, I just found it seemed to bring out some other depth in the images, in the forms. And that's really what I try and do. Taking back, the almost like a miasma, isn't it? That flows over intermittently. It goes over, and then you get a clearer glimpse of the forms, which is really trying to denoise and using all the settings I've got to just pick out more from the original. And that's really all I can try and do. And the more I got into that, the more versions I cast off in different models, if you understand.
Yeah.
Until I got to the point where I thought I could send John these. I thought that was pretty clear, and then I went because it's gone on for quite a while. I've had a new model on my software that uses neural filters or neural enhancing, and that's incredibly time consuming, but it brings another aspect out. So that's really what I was trying to do. Each render I do is it's like bringing out different treatments to what we can see and hopefully pulling out more. Yeah, especially that. I love that with the forms near the rectangle, near the table thing. And
yeah,
then
that was great.
Yeah, and that one in the center there, I love that one. I slowed that one down. Slowing it down really brings out movement and changes that you don't see at all. I mean,
Right.
especially with that kind of latticey thing, or it pulls apart or something. I mean, that was around, I think I was going certainly over 250 times slower and maybe more. I did a really long one.
Yeah, there's one that was like 6 minutes where you
Oh
drug
yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah. I go longer than I go a bit longer as well. Yeah. And I can go up to, I've done 4,000 times, which just, and then put it back into the video player and then speed it up. I feel it concentrates the detail that you've brought out in the, by stretching the frames out as well.
Right.
I know it's using the AI, but it's a tool I use for restoring old films and things. That's what I initially tried to do, or I was doing before I turned to UFOs things, and it does a good job. I think.
Yeah, this is great. I was looking at the tall gray here, so you can see
Yeah.
this, at the top of his head, and then his
Yeah.
eye structure. It almost looks like he's like looking down.
Yeah.
Right there. That's great.
And that at the side. on where the dark hole is.
Oh,
And
right
then
here.
yeah, and then he got the forms down there. The movements in that, I did some slow-mos of that area.
Mhm.
And it's like the stuff coming up, it pulls it out.
Wow.
I wanted to see
If I
the
can jump
darkness.
in there,
Sorry.
yeah, Peter, the one thing that really jumped out at me in the slow motion version was the frog, the main frog to the left.
Yeah.
You can see its tongue
Mhm.
Wow.
snapping in and out like a
Yeah.
frog or a
Yes.
snake would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you on about underneath the head there? Or because I saw
Right at
this.
the tip of its snout, you can,
Right.
Yeah,
in
right,
the
right
slow
this area,
motion
right.
version, you can see its tongue coming in and out.
Wow.
Crazy. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
just below the dark hole as well. There's like a thing moves across, which you don't see, and it's just over there now. I say you can't see
There's
it.
also, to me at least, clearly, we see to the lower right of the big gray, there's that smaller gray that's further back. But I think there's another gray
Right.
or another entity
Right. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the left of the big
Right.
gray and to the right of the frog.
Right.
That's further back.
Yeah.
Right. And then this would be the area where the short frog is. And then small.
I would say the short frog is to the left of the board there.
Yeah. Well, this I know when during one of the flashes, this was the eye, the short frog's eye that
No,
lights up.
that's the gray. That's
Oh,
the
no,
short
you're
gray in the
absolutely
back.
right. You're absolutely right. That's
The
the small
short
gray.
frog would be to the front left of the table,
Yeah, like
out of frame there.
okay, I gotcha. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thank you so much, Peter. And thank you, John, for all that we're wondering. John is the experiencer for this case. So, but yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. So in conclusion, after spending many hundreds of hours examining this case and its associated video, I feel strongly that it represents one of the most profound and compelling pieces of evidence ever presented for the existence of non-human intelligences. That conclusion isn't made lightly. My analysis included a frame-by-frame review of 1,271 discrete frames, consultation with imaging specialists such as Stephen Leah and Peter Osborne. Thanks, Peter. And extensive interviews with the witness, a lifelong experiencer who has undergone regressions with Bud Hopkins, Yvonne Smith, and Dr. Thomas Beck. Taken together, these elements form a body of evidence that I find both credible and authentic, even though the nature of these beings and their technology remain beyond our current understanding. Despite the absence of a clear mechanism or means of validation, the video strongly suggests that the phenomenon itself is real. Based on the evidence provided above and considering all available ancillary aspects of the case, including witness testimony, expert video analysis by multiple independent sources, along with the unexplained anomalies present in the video, I feel confident that this is evidence of a real event that cannot be explained by conventional means, and I close this investigation with the following dispositions: unknown UAV for the sighting portion and the ERT portion as substantial evidence case. And we'll play the video one more time.
Holy crap. Holy crap. It's crazy. Fuck.
All right. There you have it. So we'll open the floor up to questions. Like I said, we've got Peter here and we've got John with his Grateful Dead hat.
So, this is Kate, and when I'm
Okay.
looking at the film in the story, he said that the alien was at the end of the walkway. And so that was the one that was in front of the craft to the left, yeah?
No, I think you're mixing up two stories.
Oh, that's possible.
So yeah, the gray, the abduction in Key West, when I took the video, there was one gray at the end of the path, and that was the lone gray that took me back to the craft behind my condo on the golf course.
Right.
When I think it was 94, when I viewed the craft in the backyard with my best friend, there was a gray that was standing like 20 feet off to the left of the craft that we saw through binoculars. I don't know if Matt got that deep into it though.
When you go through these experiences and you see these people, these entities in front of you, I mean, do you automatically know when this is happening for real, that this is how it begins for you? Is it fairly consistent with it being present, or have you had so many different experiences that it's been different ways, different times?
I've had lots of different experiences, but I don't think I remember any experience other than the experience in my friend's yard where we actually saw the gray prior to the experience.
Okay.
I think, unless I'm mistaken, that's the only, the experience in Key West. I only saw the gray with the help of regression therapy.
Oh, wow. Wow. Do you look forward to these or don't look forward to these?
Neither. It doesn't freak me out at all. And then I guess some nights I find myself talking in my head to them, if that sounds crazy, I don't know. But it doesn't freak me out. And maybe that's one reason they allowed me to take the video.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
Right. Darlene, you have a question?
Hi, John. Before I ask my question, I'll just let you know I have been an abductee 3 times. I have a question. Yes, similar. You had a cell phone. It is only 43 seconds long. Who or how did it stop or turn off? Did you do it, an alien, or did the camera just stop after 43 seconds on its own?
It's a great question. So the reason I think I was able to record is that I think when I was walking down the path when the alien took me, the likelihood is that I had my cell phone in my hand at the time. I was walking from my car in the parking lot, probably maximum 90, 100 feet to my townhouse. And so if I was able to keep the phone in my hand the entire time, I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but there's a limited number of reasons I was able to video. Either I snapped out of their, whatever they put you in to freeze you, or they allowed me to do it. But I did not turn. I could tell you, I don't believe I turned the video off. I believe they turned it off.
Then I would ask, did anybody examine the cell phone for DNA or residue that might have been left? I'm an investigator for my profession.
So I think they turned it off electronically without touching it. Reason being is that the cell phone provides metadata and it also provides video details. And the metadata and the video details provided two different sets of data. I'm pretty sure it works this way, although Matt has not been able to corroborate the same. But I had another two video guys early on years ago that did corroborate. So the video details on the video, I believe, say that the video was recorded at 1:15 a.m. and it provides the GPS data, which is, just over a quarter mile from my home address where the video was shot. The metadata says that the video was added to the gallery at 4:30 a.m., providing the GPS details of my home address. So our belief, which is what we've come up with, is that they turned the phone off after the 43-second video. The phone was off, and when they put me back in my home at 4:30 a.m., the phone turned back on automatically. And as we all know, after you press stop on a video or a screenshot, it automatically gets transferred to your gallery. So because they turned my phone off at the time that the video ended, and then when they put me back in my home and the phone turned back on, that's when the video was added to the gallery 3 hours and 15 minutes later, which is pretty telling, pretty big information.
Oh, okay. I have one other question, and I don't know who would answer this, but I'm very curious about the wormhole that you said. One, was it present all the time while John was in the ship, or was it just present at the end of the video? And when you analyzed it, you said the faces were coming out of that wormhole. Do you have any other information regarding that?
So Stephen Leah, I'll let Matt talk after this. Stephen Leah, who recovered all this data, he surmises that it's either some type of controlled wormhole or some type of portal that allows other entities to see what's going on. Almost like what do you call it? A live television show. Where people or even like a Zoom call, where people are signing in all to watch one show that's going on live. And that's kind of what we were thinking that it might be, is that different entities from all over the place through some type of portal. And, we have a very limited ability to discern what's going on, are all there watching what's going on the ship. In the most elementary way of talking about it.
Okay. Matt, do you have anything else?
Yeah, so I don't believe that Stephen did that analysis for all. I know he did a lot of work on it, but specifically that the frames 700 to 800 are where he did the streaming head, or he found that streaming head area. And then his partner, chief scientist, his name is Dr. Michael Boyd, who's a physicist. They both found that toroidal structure in above the tall gray's head, and it appears that that's where these heads, where they are originating from, as they're flowing into the frame. It's really weird. I mean, like I said, Stephen also found evidence of gravitational lensing. So, I've been kind of playing around with this in my head for the last year, trying to figure out what this is. My theory is that, so this wormhole that's present, and it's obviously depositing stuff into the room there. I've often thought if, maybe this is like kind of a transporter or something like you see on Star Trek. Maybe that this is the way that they are traveling, back and forth, or possibly maybe the entire craft and all of the beings in it are being transmitted from some other place in the galaxy or in the universe, or maybe in another universe. And maybe that's part of the process that allows these craft to appear, and to appear in solid form. Maybe this is like some kind of a transmitted data that takes on a solid form. Maybe we're viewing the process. But it's all conjecture. It's all really weird, but there definitely was, definitely found this toroidal spin feature, which was definitely not what you'd expect, to see. I mean, those kind of features, they found when he was working at Lawrence Livermore, when they were analyzing like nuclear bomb detonations and the things that they would see like in the split seconds on these high-speed film reels of the nuclear detonation. They would see um, these spin structures like that. So definitely out of place, that's for sure. But I mean, it is technically in an alien craft, so all bets are off, right?
Thank you very much.
Mhm. Thank you.
Well,
All right, Kelly.
Hi there. Thank you so much for presenting this, and John for sharing your experience with us. I wanted to know, going back to that diagram that you shared, the round structure where you mapped out where everything was, could is it possible to return to that and kind of help anchor us in where that spinning device might have been, the perspective, uh, right? What we're looking at in terms of the perspective and where the alien beings were. I'm just trying to map everything out in my head. And
when the essentially the craft, let's say, is cut in two different rooms: the light room, which is more the exam room, the
right,
dark room where all the control stuff is, and also the chair where they uh, a chair where they did wacky stuff to me. Um, Figure in that side of the craft, of the dark side, I would figure that the light fan object was in the middle of that room. And you see I put what would be that table there, and so the fan would have been maybe just slightly behind and over that table.
Yeah, I'm thinking like this area right in here. Can you guys see my cursor?
yep.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking that's where that is.
Yeah,
So,
just around toward the back of the table behind it, though.
so John, you would have been standing right here. Here's the chair that the
Yeah, I
short.
would be standing just to the right of the chair.
Right, okay. And then so then you've got the small frog would be right here, the tall
Nope,
gray.
nope, nope, nope.
Oh,
The short frog would be in front of the table,
oh, right.
in,
Okay, right
in
here.
front of that front edge there.
Okay, that makes sense. And then so then you've got the tall gray and then the tall frog. You're right here. And then
Yeah,
the short gray would be up here, another gray right here, and then that reptilian looking fellow was over here off to the side, I guess.
the reptilian and the militaristic gray were all both off
Mhm.
to the right side. The
Right.
gray with the heavy brow.
Mhm.
And so when we see the video and the lights, we're looking where, like, what are we seeing?
Yeah,
It's outside
yeah,
Yeah,
so
you're seeing through the
through the
craft.
window. Yep, yep.
so the window would be right here, and the cell phone
Yep.
tower would be 130 feet in this direction. So
Okay.
in a sense, the craft is hovering 180 feet off the ground, and then 130 feet in this direction is where the lights are. So it's kind of like hovering right up next to the top of the cell phone tower, and they're looking at it through this window here.
Mm-hmm. This is it's a great diagram. I would suggest just overlaying
Oh
some of
yeah,
these points of interest so
yeah.
that at the beginning of the story, I'm totally tracking.
Mhm.
And but just wonderful, wonderful job. So thank you. I'm gonna probably
Oh,
watch this a million times. So
yeah.
thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, Rusty.
Somebody in the chat group has a question. It might have been just answered though. So Jim Krieg wants to know, for someone who joined late, can someone explain the spinning ceiling light for me? Was that the ceiling fan in the witness's bedroom, or was he outside and that was a craft near a radio tower? Thanks.
Yeah, so that's what a lot of people, myself included, when you look at this video for the first time, you think, oh, there's a ceiling fan. It looks just like a ceiling fan. But, like I said with my analysis, I mean, it's weird. It looks like an octopus tentacle, not a ceiling fan blade, and the timing is off. And so it's definitely whatever it is, it's not a ceiling fan. But I included because a lot of skeptics see this and they think, oh, this guy filmed this in his living room. Well, the the photos that I included of inside of the residence and then outside on his back porch that do look to the southeast toward that cell tower, but it's way off in the distance. And those ceiling fans that were in the residence, like they don't look anything like this big spinning disc that's at the top of the ceiling on this craft. So,
I
Jim,
I had done 3 podcasts prior to Matt's report, and in the first podcast I did was in December of 24 on Whitley Strieber's podcast, and Stephen Leah did the podcast, and another video expert, Scott Roeder, who's well known for analyzing the Las Vegas backyard video. He also authenticated my video, but prior to Matt's report, the comments to even their analysis, so many people kept saying it's a stinking ceiling fan. How can this be taken seriously? It looks like his living room and a ceiling fan. So Matt's report has provided so much validity to the video and my story in general, and which is terrific.
And John, I had one question for you. You had total recall of this the next day
No,
of this sighting. Oh, okay. This all came out later.
I was in December of 2021. I was sitting on my back porch, pictured by Matt earlier, and going through my cell phone, just deleting pictures and videos that I didn't want anymore, like we all do at times. And I deleted 2 pictures, and then was the little screenshot of a video. And sometimes just looking at that little screenshot, we know what the video is or not. And I didn't know what it was, so I played it back. And it was dark and it was pixelated. And I didn't know what was going on, but I heard my voice clearly make 4 comments. And so I played it back a bunch of times. And before too long, I realized what was going on. And I called my good friend Amy, Amy in Key West, who's also an experiencer and also joined us on Whitley's podcast. And then from there, I was put in touch with a number of experts, some really, really top people in all types of modalities in video analysis. And there were 2 or 3 video analysts that didn't believe what it was. They all believed it was an authentic video that had not been altered or messed with, but 3 alleged experts thought that it was shot in like a garage or that we faked it somehow. And one of them ended up changing his tune big time and said he was wrong. And he had provided a multi-page report and then rescinded all of it. And so, hope I answered your question.
Thank you. You did.
John, I'm just wondering, what are the chances that you deleted a video or a picture before you got to that, the one that you didn't delete?
It was definitely not having to do, it wasn't from that the two other pictures I deleted that same day were definitely not related.
Okay, awesome. All right. Hey, Barry, you're up.
Thank you. Well, I want to say thank you, John, for coming forward and sharing your experiences. I'm an experiencer, and I wanted to ask about the Rathke's cleft cyst. But before I do that, in 1988, of May 1988, I was abducted from my apartment, and I have not had hypnosis as of yet, but I remember being lifted up out of my bed and being terrified, but not being able to move. And the next morning when I woke up, I knew that I was taken as soon as I woke up. And I found some blood on my pillow and realized that I had a bloody nostril. And I found a BB-sized object right next to my pillow, which I had kept for years until I tried to find it this past year or so. I searched everywhere. I kept it for years in a little box in a drawer, in a little cabinet, but it may still be here, or it may have mysteriously disappeared. But I wanted to know, when you went to the doctor, I mean, did you purposefully go to have your head scanned to look for something, or were you having some kind of issues? How did that all happen?
Yeah, I lived in northern Westchester, and my wife I was having headaches for about 2 weeks, which was abnormal. And my wife suggested I go see the neurologist in our medical group, which was multidisciplinary. And I went to see Dr. Zabo at the Mount Kisco Medical Group, and super, super nice guy. And he said, well, just routine, let's send you for an MRI, make sure everything's looking good. And I went back to see him. And he said, well, John, he said, you do have something that only one or two out of, every 100 people have. It's called Rathke's cleft cyst, and not to worry at all. It's always benign, nothing to worry about. And he went on to explain that Dr. Rathke had discovered this about 35 years prior to our meeting that day. And he said to me how it's in the pituitary just above your nasal cavity. And he said it's a little BB-sized object. He actually told me the size, like 0.04 something or other. And all the different things he's telling me, my wheels are turning, and I'm like, that all sounds like a stinking alien implant. So I reach across the desk and I pick up his pen and I say, Dr. Zabo, let me ask you a question. If I was able to balance a little BB on the tip of the pen, let's say the size of my Rathke's cleft cyst, and I put it up my nose as far as it could go, and then I took my other hand and I hit it really hard from underneath. And before I could say anything else, he cut me off and he said, John, he said, essentially, you would hear a crunching sound as it went through the cartilage, and depending on how hard you hit it, the BB would end up in the vicinity of where your Rathke's cleft cyst is. Excuse me. And then he says, John, do you think you're an alien? Do you think you've been abducted by aliens? And I'm like, whoa, my neurologist telling me that. And I said, Dr. Zabo, why do you ask me this? And he goes, well, I know this might be a little weird, but I have two other patients, both about my age, both professionals. And about 4 years ago, a woman who's an attorney was sitting in your seat, and I explained to her that she had Rathke's cleft cyst, and she told me she was an alien abductee, and she was pretty sure that it was an alien implant. He said about a year later, a guy about the same age as the woman and himself, who's an accountant, a CPA, Dr. Zabel told him about his Rathke's cleft cyst, and he responded, oh, I know that's an alien implant. I'm a lifelong abductee. And Dr. Zabel went on to point out on his bookshelf the self-published book that the guy wrote about his experiences. So Dr. Zabel goes to me, he goes, now this is 2 years later, and you're telling me after I said you had Rathke's cleft cyst that you too are an abductee. I said, no, I never told you, I'm sorry. He said, now you too are telling me this is an alien implant. I said, I don't know that it's an implant, but I can tell you I'm a lifelong abductee. And I had, unexplained nosebleeds throughout my childhood. So that was a pretty wild thing. And I had been turned on to a guy, I don't mind telling his name, Dr. Kit Green. He's known within the UFO world. And Dr. Green was a former CIA guy. And I had, when I had been turned on to Dr. Green, I explained all this to him. We had a 2.5-hour talk. And that was very early on in everything. I never spoke with him again because he wanted to talk to Dr. Zabo, and we were never able to make that happen. The only way I was going to be able to talk to him was through paying $275 for a telehealth appointment. And I just never did it. Anyway, about 2 years ago, give or take, after Stephen Leah had done the analysis of the thing in my head, I tried getting in touch with Dr. Zabo once again, and I was unsuccessful. When Matt was working on his report, he tried contacting Dr. Zabo, and it was Matt that found out that shortly after a couple of months after I tried contacting him the second time, he allegedly committed suicide. The head of the neurology department at this big medical practice.
That's highly suspicious.
I don't know if it's highly suspicious, but it is somewhat suspicious. It's weird. It's weird to say the least.
Wow, that's just so amazing. And I'd have to wonder that if they put the object, did your body create the cyst around it to try to protect itself? I mean, the cyst was caused because of the foreign object in your body, maybe. Now I found out that, of course, I wondered what happened here? Why did I find this? It's supposed to be in my head. I knew it was what it was. I looked at this thing. I didn't know a lot about this stuff at the time that this was going on, but later, but I contacted Bud Hopkins after that event happened, which my brother was abducted on the same night from a different down the road a number of miles, same evening. And so I kept that little object. It was a little gray, hard, seemed like ceramic like object the size of a BB. And I knew it was some kind of nanotechnology or something, I don't know, but I was too embarrassed. I didn't talk to anybody about this stuff. And I had to admit to my wife that these things were happening. At the time, she didn't know about this stuff until odd things started to happen before this. But, I later on, a number of years later, I ended up finding out I had an anomaly in my sinus, in my face that was removed. It was an unusual cyst that was discovered when I had an X-ray from a dentist, and the dental surgeon said, "This is an highly unusual thing," because I was too embarrassed to, I didn't even connect it at first, but it just freaked me out so much after the surgery and everything. But he asked if you could bring some students in to see this because it was something very unusual. And I never, now I'm wishing I would have asked for it, but oh well. And it was fascinating, your story. I need to find out the missing blanks in my life.
Not too late to go get an MRI.
Yes.
Or hypnosis regression.
I'm thinking I need to do both, but the thing is, I've had my head scanned years back because of sinus issues. Of course, nobody was looking specifically. Maybe if they would have seen it, they would have said something. But if they're looking for something else, I don't know. I'd love to see those scans now, but it is curious. Or, I don't know. Did they take the thing out? Was a thing that I found something from my childhood, and I don't know. It makes you wonder a lot of things. But well, thank you so much. Fascinating. Really a very interesting meeting tonight. I really appreciate it, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
All right. We'll go around the room one more time. Any other questions? No. All right, then. Well, thank you to, Denise. Yeah. Unmute.
There.
There you go.
Okay. My question is, do you have any unresolved medical issues left over from these experiences?
No. No, none that I know of. No.
Okay.
There's Matt, I think, told, when I had my head drilled into, so I constantly pick at a little scab on the top of my head, and that's about it.
All right. Thank you.
As far as I know.
All right.
And I can confirm that he has some implants. So yeah, I mean, John, I hope you don't mind me bringing this up yet, but he, when I met him in person, there's one in his arm that was very prominent, kind of creepy. So
I have one BB-like object in that kind of fatty dead skin, my right elbow. I have another one about the same size in the skin above my kneecap, but below the skin. And then I have another one that is right here in my ear, a little BB-like. Listen, they all could be cysts. I'm not one to jump to conclusions, but I am interested in getting them cut out and see what we got.
well, I can tell I've had a few ganglion cysts like on my joint, my ankles or stuff like that around the joints. This was it was like a hard BB. I mean, it was bigger than a BB. But it was hard, really hard.
That's what all three are like. They're
Yeah.
all pretty much the same consistency and same size, and they all move around under the skin, even the one in the ear.
Yeah. Fascinating. All right. Thank you, Denise.
Mhm.
All right. Anybody else? All right, then. Oh, Joan. Yeah. Unmute. There you go.
Gotta unmute. It could take a second.
You're almost there. You muted back again.
Oh, God.
There you go.
Okay. I didn't hear the funny. I'm sorry. Did you make a funny?
Yes.
No.
Hilarious.
I missed it. But I saw everybody laughing. I got to say, I'm a little freaked out by this, to be really honest. Sorry, my cat's starting to meow. I have had experiences, but I have never spoken or listened to anybody this closely who's been abducted. And then some other people have. So I'm really into this stuff, and I believe what I experienced, but I don't think I was abducted. I want to thank you for sharing that. That's like major. I have a question about the video in the beginning. When you're taking it, is that a flying saucer? Is that like their ship that we see in the sky, and you're holding the phone?
No.
What is that thing spinning in the beginning?
The thing spinning is what others have turned a ceiling fan, but Matt kind of explained that away. I'm standing in the ship.
Okay, so at that point you're inside, and that's on the ceiling, because it looks like a ship outside. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I can't believe they let you copy video it. That's amazing. After the video ends, do you have any memory of what happened after that?
I don't have any memory from before that.
Okay.
I don't have any memory other than getting out of my car and walking toward my townhouse. And that was it. I don't remember the abduction. I don't remember being put back in my home. I don't remember anything the next morning, that anything the prior night was weird. It all started with me finding the video on my phone 6 months after the fact.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. I hope I can sleep tonight.
Yeah.
Hey, if I can sleep, you can
I will.
sleep.
I will think of you.
Joan, one thing that you asked about, like why did they let him do that? I think we've kind of surmised that, that telepathic communication from the entities, the tall gray, that was, you have something important to do. You have a mission.
Right.
It may have been that him recording this video was his task. Maybe that was his mission.
Purposeful.
Because, you fast forward, 5 years in the future, then, now this video is, getting out and people are seeing it and it's being talked about. And, I don't know how many podcasts that, it's been featured on at this point, but, maybe this is part, maybe this is part of, the
plan.
The entities, maybe this is part of their disclosure plan. And maybe this was John's mission.
Yeah, and maybe they wanted it out and to educate people. Or wow, and then those things coming out of the wormhole. I mean, you don't remember the experience that much, but do you think they went back in, or are they?
I don't remember, without the help of the regression.
Yeah,
I don't remember any of it, and even if I did remember any of it, I might not have seen it, because you can't see those faces on the video without it going through Stephen's quantum analysis.
Right.
You actually, and maybe Matt would agree with me, I always have a problem saying the word pareidolia, where you see faces, Matt. What's the word?
Pareidolia?
Yeah. So just watching the video in itself, it seems that you could see faces everywhere in the video.
Yeah.
Just viewing it, but you also don't want to think that you're making it up.
Right.
Peter's just earlier today, Peter provided a slow motion of the video that's 6.5 minutes long. This 43-second video stretched out. And some of the things that were visible in this that we haven't seen in prior versions were really, really incredible.
Yeah. I'm sure. That's amazing. Just the beginning. Well, thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joan.
You're welcome.
All right, Peter.
Yeah, I'm awful sorry. I'm gonna have to go.
Okay. Yeah,
I've
it's
got to
late
go work
over
in
there,
2
everyone.
hours.
Yeah.
But I'm
Peter,
really.
thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, John. And Matthew, I must say, I've really enjoyed your frames at the beginning of the presentation. That was excellent. I loved looking at those. And the quantum imaging thing that the chap did with the faces. I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to see if I can find this because I didn't see any of that. I'm going to have a look at that.
Yeah,
That's intrigued me.
I know Stephen Leah put hours and hours and
Yeah.
hours. I mean, he went through 700 frames, and the process for just a single frame is very, very involved. So his process
He
is
created instructional videos, 45-minute, 60-minute different videos explaining his process and explaining what he found using his computer. And it was, it's boring after a while because it's all technical, but it's really, really, really cool.
Anyway, thanks for that. I've really enjoyed this.
See you, Peter.
Yeah,
Thank you
absolutely,
so much.
Peter.
Awesome.
Thank you very, very much, Peter.
Thank you. See you again.
All right.
And Claire.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Claire. All right, so I think we're about wrapped up. Last chance to ask a question. If anybody has questions later, or maybe the people that are watching the recorded version, if you have any questions, just you can send them to me. At just the address that I send the links from. Just reply to that and let me know, and then I'll forward it to John. So, well, thank you very much, John. Thank you so much for being here and answering everybody's questions, and it was great seeing y'all. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Sev. Great seeing you guys. Thank you, Joan. It was a great time.
Good job, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great evening.
Look forward to technology advancing and seeing this thing like on a high def video.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Take care.